Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're gonna be doing something that is, pretty fucking random. Yeah, you know those things at the beginning of movies where it shows like the company logos and those animations? Yeah, you never really think much about them nowadays, but for some reason though, I actually find there's kind of a lost art within some of these back in the day. For that, some of them may look really cool, some of them might have some really great music to go with them, and of course, some of them may give you some nostalgic brain buzz that remembers you at a time when you were much younger and before you were really thinking about, like, the internet. And possibly some good old memories that you might have. So with that said, I want to talk about some that were very nostalgic to me that I have some pretty good memories with. So the first one I want to mention is Paramount's. Yeah, it was always cool to see that mountain picture with the stars, and then of course you got like that really epic music that, now that I think about it, it kind of sounds like Victory Fanfare theme that you would hear within like an RPG or something. But yeah, that music definitely does get you pumped, especially when you know you're going to be watching something great like Indiana Jones: The Lost Ark. Although it is kind of tough to point out which is the first film that I watched with this logo intro. I mean, it might have been that movie, but I have a feeling it probably wasn't, but I know that was a very early example of one. Also, another thing I have to mention is that there were other versions of this intro that had a narration that said, "And now we are pleased to bring you our feature presentation." Yeah, you know that voice. Now, I have no idea who did that voice, but whoever you are, you deserve a fucking medal. And okay, one last thing I have to mention about this logo intro, and this is something you're probably all gonna make fun of me about, and that's totally fine, but as a kid, sometimes when I would look at this mountain, I would always be thinking about Heavenly Hash ice cream. Yeah, I don't know why, I don't know, maybe it's because of the fact I used to eat that ice cream a lot as a kid when I used to watch TV, but I don't know, man. It's one of those things I just randomly remembered after watching it again, and now I'm just like, fuck, I want Heavenly Hash ice cream now. But yeah, it's one of those things that you're never really sure why you always think about it, but you do. I mean, at least it's not as ridiculous as one of my best friend's things where he always thinks of mayonnaise when a gun reloads. Yeah, I'll never understand that, but of course, he always has to tell me about that. So the next one I want to talk about is Tristar. So there's two versions I do want to talk about for this one. So there is their very first one. Yeah, the animation on the Pegasus going by was just pretty awesome looking, and of course I really love the music that goes along with it as well. It's another very memorable one that does get me excited every time. In fact, the first time I recall seeing this was actually within the film Labyrinth, which I think is pretty fitting given that they are both fantasy, and also, you know, Labyrinth is also one of my all-time favorites. But yes, a very memorable one that it truly is a work of art. And then of course I have to talk about the one that they did afterwards, which was a little more simplistic, but it was still pretty awesome looking. Yeah, the way how like the Pegasus like zooms in closely at the screen, it's pretty great stuff. But one thing that I'll always remember with this one was when I first saw it within the film Jumanji. So for those of you that have seen it, you know that the very beginning of the movie starts out with that very creepy ambient music. Well, you actually do hear a little bit of that while this logo is going, and of course when it like slowly like jumps up at you at the screen with that music, I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty creepy as shit as a kid. So I'll always remember it for that, which is always amusing to me. So the next one I'm gonna talk about is MGM. Yes, I'm sure we all know where this is going. It's that intro where the lion, where it's like obnoxiously loud and almost gives a run for its money to THX. And one thing that always amuses me is that whenever we used to watch a movie that happened to be from them, like every time we would always have like the TV volume at like mid-range or so, like every time that intro would play, we would always have to like turn it down like immediately because it was just so fucking loud. But even outside of it just being really loud, it was actually a very cool and iconic one. But probably my favorite variation of it would have to be the one that came out in the 90s, where it used to go through like that film strip that you see here. I always thought that was just a really cool looking one. And then it'd also have like that music track that almost sounds like something out of Wizard of Oz. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to play the audio here because it does sound pretty similar to it, and I don't want to have any of the YouTube police try to take this down. I know Universal does that with the intros that have the Back to the Future music within it, but as much as we all like this really iconic lion one, I have to say that there's actually another one that they did in the 80s that was also pretty cool, but definitely not on the same level as this though, but I still liked it though. Yeah, it's not as fancy, over the top, or as loud, but I do like it for the fact that it just has a really cool jingle to it. It's very catchy, and of course, it kind of reminds me a little bit of, like, the NFL theme. So the next one I want to talk about is Touchstone. You know, it's more simplistic, but the thing I like about it is that music. Like, that, like, synthesizer sound is just so awesome, and also it sounds kind of creepy, too. It would definitely fit in an old horror movie. In fact, I guess the reason why I'm always assuming that it's, like, more dark and creepy sounding is probably has to do with the fact that the first time I remember seeing this intro was actually within the movie The Nightmare Before Christmas, which makes more sense now that I think about it, but yeah, I always remembered it for that. And of course I have to mention whenever it does, I don't know what it is, but that sound is just so satisfying. Like, imagine like every time you punch the shit out of something, that would be the sound that would make. That would be pretty fucking awesome. But yeah, sometimes the most simplest of intros can be the most memorable. Okay, so this next one right here is one that I completely forgot about until recently, and that happens to be hightop videos. But holy shit, like, how more 80s can this get? Like, the animation going on here is nothing special, you know, just a shoe and shoelaces going together, you know, whatever. But the music, though, like, that's, like, the shit. It really makes me wish we got, like, a full song out of that. Like, there needs to be, like, an extended version of that, and maybe have, like, some lyrics going on in there. I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking about it too much. But yeah, I freaking love that song. I just can't get enough of it. And the first time I remember seeing this was actually in some of those old, Charlie Brown VHS tapes that we used to have. So the next one I want to talk about is Dark Castle Entertainment, and this is actually their very first one. Now that right there is Castlevania as fuck. But I know, with a name like Dark Castle Entertainment, I know some of you are thinking of the shitty Genesis game, Dark Castle, but nah, fuck that shit. I'd rather think about Castlevania. But yeah, that 3D gargoyle, man, like, I know, like, these early 3D stuff haven't aged well, but there's just a really cool aesthetic to that I just can't help but really like it. But yeah, definitely a really badass one that is very memorable, and funny enough, the first time I saw this one was actually within the very first film that they put out, House on Haunted Hill. Yeah, that's a movie that has not aged very well, I'm just telling you right now. Okay, so the last one I want to mention for the movie section is one that really does take me back, and that happens to be Random House Video. Now that intro to me is like pure nostalgia, like holy crap. Yeah, this one really does take me back to a time when I was actually pure, and before I witnessed a bunch of fucked up things on the internet. I'll never be able to get that time back, you know? But with that aside though, I really do love this intro though, it's just very peaceful. I mean, I really love that music is just so nice and chill and just, like, I really love it. In fact, this is another one of those intros that I really wish we had like an extended version of it or something. And the animation for it is just very simplistic stuff, but you know, it's kind of cool, you know, just like the rainbows going together, and, you know, come to think of it, what the hell type of name is Random House? I mean, it's like, I also call it like Random Cat, or Random Coffee Table. Now, in case you don't remember what these people did, or you didn't know, this was a company that put out a lot of animated stuff, usually being like the Bernstein Bears, Arthur, Richard Scarry, if anyone remembers that shit. Yeah, it was a kid's show about a cat and his best friend being a worm. Yeah, it was really weird. But damn, man, like Random House, like that's just one of those things that like I completely forgot about until just recently. And of course, with that music being so great and short, I might have to start using that for intro songs for some of my videos. Okay, so we're done with the movie stuff, but now let's get moving on to some of the more anime stuff. Yeah, we're going to the weeb section now. So there's three I want to talk about here. So the first one I want to mention is Viz Video. Now that is what I call pretty damn epic. So I have to say, this one actually reminds me of a mixture of two things. It reminds me of Xenosaga and Halo. Yeah, that's right. Freaking Xenosaga and Halo. Yeah, I made that comparison, damn it. So what makes me think of Xenosaga is with the golden cubes flying in space. It reminds me of the giant golden monolith from Xenosaga. And the reason why it reminds me of Halo is that if you listen closely to the background music, you hear that like soft chanting. It kind of reminds me of like the Halo theme a little bit. So yeah, that's pretty awesome that it reminds me of those two things, and of course, it's just a pretty cool looking intro, and I really love it. And then the next one is one that I've actually never really seen until recently, but I thought it looked cool, so I wanted to talk about it, and that happens to be the one for Media Blasters back in the day. Like I said about those old 3D graphics, there's just something about them that I just really like, and I think it's just really charming. And when it goes to the dark tunnel, it's actually kind of creepy looking that like it's just so dark and you can't see and you don't know what the hell is gonna pop up at you. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have much nostalgia for this intro since I don't recall ever watching anything from Blast Media back in the day, but it's still a really cool one that I do really like and that I do appreciate. Now, as for the final one that I'm going to mention here is US Manga Corps. Fuck yeah. So they have two intros. The first one that I want to talk about is very simplistic. It's just a blue background with the logo, and then of course you got the really awesome looking MD Geist picture right here. Yeah, they actually used this logo because the CEO of this company, it was actually his favorite anime. Which pretty much tells you that he is Chad as fuck. But the second intro they did is just wow. Now that is pretty awesome looking. Yeah, I don't give a shit if it looks like a PS1 game, I freaking love this shit. In fact, this is probably the closest we'll ever get to a PS1 game of MD Geist, so I have to appreciate that. But yeah, it's just a very simple badass intro using early 3D effects, and yeah, like I said, it's charming, but it's also really badass looking. It's just really cool the way how they made Geist look in this. And that's all the ones I'm going to be talking about today. So what are some of your favorite movie intros or logo animations, whatever you want to call it? Like, what are some of your favorite ones that you really like and some that I didn't mention? Because obviously I didn't mention some of the more like, you know, like the Disney ones. Because, you know, obviously those are very memorable and like DreamWorks and all that. Or maybe you just don't give a fuck because like, who the hell cares about these movie intros? They suck. Like, why the hell did you dedicate like a bunch of time creating a video talking about them? Are you stupid? Well, maybe just a little bit, but here's the thing though, I just thought it would just be kind of amusing and fun, and you know, it just kind of takes you back to a time when things were more simpler, you know, like back when you didn't have to think about all this quarantine shit. So with that being said, thanks for watching and commenting, and have yourselves a great day.